Hello cuties, and welcome to my Heroic Council of Elders 25-man guide. I'm going to assume that you have done this fight in normal mode, and as such, I will not be covering most of the known vulnerabilities. For this fight, you want to bring 2 tanks, 6 to 7 healers, with the rest of the raid being DPS, with ranged DPS being favored over melee. We use 6 healers for our kill. Depending on your DPS, the fight might change a lot from having 6 to 7 healers. I'll go into more detail on this later on. This encounter on Heroic makes all the Councilors and Gael have an extra ability each that you have to deal with. The Councilors will only use these new abilities when they are possessed by Gael. Gael's heroic ability is called Soul Fragment, and is an ability that happens every time Gael is forced out of a Councilor. One random DPS in the raid gets his Soul Fragment debuff, which inflicts 35,000 shadow damage every 5 seconds, and every time it deals damage, it will leave behind a stacking debuff called Shadowed Soul that increases all damage taken by 2% per stack. Whenever a player gets a Soul Fragment debuff, he will also gain an extra action button, which will allow him to pass the debuff to another player. Target a player in the raid and use the extra action button to pass the Soul Fragment debuff to that player. What you want to do with this ability is to make sure that the players you have in raid that can soak a lot of damage without dying and have good self cooldowns, Death Knights, Shadow Priests, Moonkins, Monks, to name a few, take more of this than others. Eventually, a lot of people will be debuffed with Shadowed Soul, taking a lot more damage, which is something healers have to watch out for. And also, whoever has high stacks, be smart with usage of self cooldowns and Hellstones. I recommend going to 5 stacks of Shadowed Soul per player first, which is 5 ticks of Soul Fragment, which is 25 seconds per player. Frost King Malak's new heroic ability is Body Heat, which is a debuff he puts on players that shares frostbite damage. How this works is that as soon as you start sharing frostbite damage, you'll get the debuff Body Heat that lasts for 8 seconds, and during this you can share frostbite damage just like normal. Once Body Heat expires, you get a new debuff called Chill to the Bone, which lasts for another 8 seconds that makes you unable to share any frostbite damage. There are 2 ways to deal with this. Either you have 2 groups of 4 players in each group rotating in to stand with whoever has frostbite to share the damage, or you just have healers heal through frostbite without sharing the damage. We opted for the latter in this video and it worked great. Cassin's new heroic ability is Discharge, which he will use after every roll. This is basically the same as his Overload ability he has in normal mode, but it's a lot deadlier. You deal with this by stacking on top of Cassin while using healing and mitigation cooldowns for each discharge, with 2 players standing out, 1 player with Bite and Cold and the other one to lure Cassin to roll to a specific spot. We'll cover more on this later. Sul the Sandclaw's new heroic ability is Treacherous Ground. What this ability will do is that it will lump together 2 or more quicksands that are dropped close to each other into one big quicksand that will spawn a big living sand ad when Sul gets possessed. This big living sand ad will have 125% more health and deal 125% more damage for each quicksand pool that combine into a larger pool. In case you opted to not kill Sul before he gets possessed and have to deal with this ability, all you have to do is to make sure that by the time Sul is about to drop a quicksand on someone, make sure everyone in the raid besides melee who can't get targeted by quicksand stay away from quicksand that are already placed on the ground, so that when they spawn away from each other. That way, no quicksand will lump together to form a big one. I'm sure you noticed that there's no video footage of Sul being possessed, and that's because we always killed him before he got possessed. Killing Sul before he gets possessed is part of the strategy used in this video, but in case you do get him possessed, just follow what I said previously and you should be fine. High Priestess Marlee's new heroic ability is Twisted Fate, which she will cast about once every 30 seconds. What will happen is that 2 players, the one furthest away from the raid, and one of the melee players in the raid, will have a clone spawn on them. Each clone has about 8 million health each, and will slowly walk towards the other clone. The closer the clones are to each other, the more damage you will take, up to 250,000 shadow damage every 3 seconds on the raid. You can slow, knock back, root and stun these clones. When one of the clone dies, the other clone will root itself to the ground and deal 100,000 shadow damage every 3 seconds to the entire raid. How you deal with these are pretty simple. Have 1 ranged player stand at max range so that he always gets picked by Twisted Fate, and then kill the clones when they spawn as you lock them down with stuns, slows, knockbacks and all that to make sure that they don't get close to each other. Alright, so let's get to the strategy. As I said earlier about the fight being different with having either 6 or 7 healers, that's because what you want to aim for is to kill Sul before he gets possessed. Obviously with 1 less DPS and 1 more healer, this will make that a bit harder, but it's definitely possible to kill Sul before he gets possessed with 7 healers. Even if Sul is possessed, you can still kill him with this strategy. We'll talk more about Sul once we get to that point in this guide. What you want to do is to use heroism at the start of the fight and go as hard as you can on Sul while making sure you cleave and dot Malak as much as possible. This part will vary a bit depending on your DPS setup, as you have to make sure you stop Malak from being possessed before he wipes the raid with his dark energy being at 100 for too long. Depending on your healers, you should let Malak hit 100 dark energy for a little bit so you can get more DPS time on Sul. We had Malak at 100 dark energy for about 12 seconds on our kill, and that was pretty easy to heal through. What you aim for here is to get Sul to about 35 to 39% health right as Malak is no longer possessed. Keep dots rolling on Cassin here as well, but don't worry too much about Marlee. As with normal mode, stun and kill the lower spirits every time Marlee summons one. Also, make sure you have 3 players on Sul that can interrupt all of his samples. Leave 2 melee DPS on Sul and drag him and Malak over to Marlee once she gets possessed. Marlee will use her Twisted Fate ability shortly after. Make sure you have 1 ranged player standing at max range from the boss, and when the clones spawn, kill them quickly while stunning, knocking them back and slowing them. While Twisted Fate is active, head rage stack on the boss to make healing easier, but watch out for Quicksand and Biting Cold, and make sure you lose your spread out around the boss when these 2 abilities are about to go off. Make sure you avoid Cassin's roll as well, as the extra damage during Twisted Fate can be deadly. One last thing about Marlee is that she will never spawn Shattered Loa Spirits on heroic mode. What you aim for here is to get Sul to about 10 to 15% health right as Marlee is no longer possessed. Cassin will get possessed next. Make sure that you have one of your tanks interrupt Marlee and bring her out of the raid so you don't have her spawning Loa Spirits on top of the other trolls. What you need to do here is to stack on Cassin and make sure that you have 2 players standing out about 10 yards or so away from the raid. 1 player that has Biting Cold and the other player has a lure. It's important that the players who stand out do not stand out too far, as you don't want to have to run too far to stack on Cassin as he rolls out. Cassin will always prefer ranged targets for his roll, so with this strategy, you can lure him to roll on a specific target every time to make stacking up on him easier. Make sure that you have healing and mitigation cooldowns ready after each roll for his discharge, as this will do a lot of damage, especially later in the encounter. Make sure that you kill Sul before Cassin gets 100 dark energy, as Cassin will deal a massive amount of damage with his discharge and dark power. As with stacking on Marlee during her Twisted Fate, make sure that you loosely spread around Cassin whenever Quicksand or Biting Cold is about to happen, and then quickly restack once both are over. At this point, Sul should be dead and you just rinse and repeat what you did before on Marlee, Malak and Cassin. If you lack the DPS to kill Sul here, try not to have any huge pool of Quicksand on the ground. If you do, it's not an instant wipe or anything, but it will make his phase a bit harder. I don't have any footage of this phase, but we did successfully do it before with another strategy before our kill. What you want to do is to have a healing cooldown ready for his Sandstorm that he will use as soon as he gets possessed. After that, his living sand adds have spawned and one of your tanks have to pick them all up. You can slow this ad so it helps a lot by slowing them, as they will most likely beeline straight for the healers. Depending on Sul's health at this point, you can either kill him fast or you have to kill the ads. He will use another Sandstorm later, which will fortify any ads that are remaining, making them do a lot more damage and healing them to full. Don't forget that when you kill any living sand, they will spawn a Quicksand where they died, so make sure you don't kill them on top of the raid. Whether Sul died before or after Cassin, you just have to rinse and repeat what you did earlier now. Don't forget that since Sul is dead, you can stack a lot more safely without worrying about his Quicksand, and when Malak is dead, you can stack the entire time as long as you avoid the rolls from Cassin. I hope this guide helped you guys out, and if you have any questions or comments, let me know below or message me in game. Thanks for watching.